Welcome back, my friends, to the FPV Academy, episode number 5. And this week we're going to talk about sub-hobbies. Hobbies within the hobby. Stuff you can do while you FPV. And as usual, I brought a couple of buddies along, coming up on the screen right now over here. My good old friend Travis. Hello, Travis. How are you today?
Doing well, thank you. How are you?
Very good. It's getting summer in here. And then also he's going to pop up right on the screen if he says something. Michael Monty FPV is back. Hey, Michael, how are you?
How you doing tonight?
Pretty good. Thanks for joining us again. So today we're going to talk about the various hobbies within the hobby. So those of you who are new to the concept of this show, we're going to rotate through the 4 main topics of FPV, and then on the 5th episode, each 5th episode, we're going to have some random topics mixed in, and this time it's just a huge flurry of topics coming towards you, pretty much the main things. There are a lot more. This list is never ending. The main things that you can do in FPV, where you can specialize on, where you can spend most of your time. As usual, you can join us in the chat, so you can come to the YouTube chat room. Justin is already in there, and Monty and Travis are looking at the chat to pick out questions that you have. And you can also join the Discord chat. The advantage of this chat is that it's permanent, so it stays across all the episodes that we are recording. If you're looking for any links or any stuff that has been posted in the history of this video series, then you can just go into the Discord chat, and you get there by putting this bit.ly link into your browser, and then you can participate even when we're not streaming, and you can look up all the history of everything that has been posted. So let's get right into this. Let's not lose much time, because I'm dedicated to stay on time and to move through this quickly to overload you with information today. So bringing up the list here and my video channel, let's start with the different ways you can start flying. After you've mastered the basics, after you've put your vehicle and your equipment together, what can you do? So let's start with freestyle or fun flying. Travis, if you want to talk about this, I give you 4 minutes starting right now.
Well, so there's a lot of different ways that you can fly once you've mastered basic flight. And freestyle is one of the most popular things that we are exposed to. Fun flying would be maybe like a little bit less intense version of freestyle, the way I look at it. Freestyle flight. So if you are into mastering certain moves, you can hop on YouTube and browse all the different channels and see things that just make your head spin and just make you absolutely go wow. And then you can head out in your driveway or your local flying field, and you can start practicing these moves. And if you're going to really advance in freestyle flight, what I would say is that you're going to end up doing a lot of repetitive practice. It's a sport like any other sport, and it really it shows how much practice time and effort that you put into it. Obviously, there's a lot of broken parts along the way, and a lot of crashes that are that you can't really view as setbacks. So I think if freestyle is something that interests you, you really have to be honest with yourself about, do you enjoy the process? Sub-hobbies and hobbies within the hobby are all about finding the things that inspire you and the things that you enjoy most while you're hobbying. And some of us, practice is one of those things. Getting out there and practicing and mastering a new technique and a new trick is just an incredibly rewarding experience. So if you're one of those guys, hardcore freestyle might be the thing for you. I would say, for myself personally, I'm probably more of a fun flyer. I try some advanced tricks, and there are days that I practice, but I don't get out there and give myself, all right, I'm going to fly 10 packs today, and I'm going to rip this trick 10 or 20 times in a row, and then move on to the next one. I just get out and cruise, and I have a good time. So I'm probably more of a fun flyer, and there's room for all of us in the hobby, and it's all about what inspires you. I would pass over to Monty at this point and say, Monty, where would you categorize yourself as far as different flying techniques and what's inspired you?
Oof. I enjoy fun flying the most, but when it comes to freestyle, I see a lot of these moves that people do, and it just inspires me to go outside and try more, or try in the house. It just keeps you going, man. You see somebody say, "How the heck did they do that?" And it gets you going. And this is why this sport and this hobby is so much fun. There is no end to it. You can dabble in racing, and that's a whole different aspect, different style, different type of discipline, different style of flying. Freestyle has its following, racing has its following, but there's a lot of us who just fit in the fun fly category. We want to grab our stuff and go have a good time.
Very good. I think that's about 4 minutes. I kind of messed up the stopwatch. I put it to 4 hours, so I fixed that. Let's move on. Let's talk about. Now let's just put one quote out of the chat room here. Dwayne, I hope I pronounced your name properly. He is the master in the move of crashing. Yeah, that's. I think we all are. That's just part of the game. So let's talk about club racing. I'll start 4 minutes right now. So I have started flying in clubs a while ago, but then I kind of got sidetracked by actually not flying in the clubs, but organizing the tech for the races. So I have seen many FPV races, primarily, or all of them, in Australia, and I can tell you that's a really fun sport. So if you are if you're competitive, if you want to build stuff, fly fast, build teams, and maybe even gain some international successes, then club racing is a fun thing to do. So I know that in the US there's multi-GP and many organized races. In Australia there's FPVR, where we run a lot of club races across the country, and I have seen some people win some serious prizes and have some serious fun over the time. So club racing is a really interesting way of spending your time in FPV. Travis or Michael, do you have any experience yourself with club racing? You want to add anything to that?
I would say I haven't done any club racing. I've been in flying clubs for most of my life, and the club environment is a really incredible place. If you've never been to any sort of a flying club, I encourage you to get out there and try that. It's just great to be face to face with a community of guys that are interested in the same thing that you are, and to see everybody's different gear, and get a chance to kind of hands on with some things before you look into buying, making purchases. It's a great environment, and you can lose an entire day out at a club easily, and so get out there, try out some of your local clubs, and maybe even start one. Get together with some guys and put something together.
That's right. Someone needs to start it if you want to have a club. Michael, do you have any experience with club racing? Seen anything near your place?
I was attracted to club racing from the very beginning, and then when I got to the field and I saw how fast and how good everybody was, I kind of just used it more as a networking type atmosphere. I need to practice more, but I still love going and hanging out with everybody.
Yep, that's cool. So I got 1 minute left. Let's see if we have something in the chat. The Alaska Drone Racing League has given us a thumbs up. Yeah, so if you like this video, smash the like button, my friends. Thank you. Frank Barayas is giving us greetings from the land of Oz. Is that Australia? Thanks, buddy. We're on the same island. Shred Zebra says, thanks for the series. And Christopher Potts is here again. Hello from Michigan. Dylan Chubbs is watching at 2 times speed to catch up. Ray Lugo is back again. And for Dylan, he says, the camaraderie of club racing is the biggest appeal for me. Yep, you're right with that, my friend. I made many friends in the racing clubs, one of my best friends to these days. I have recruited from those days. We've been sitting up on a green field and tinkering with quads. So 4 minutes almost done. Let's move on to the next topic, long range flying. 4 minutes starting right now. So long range flying, that means flying further than I'd say 100 meters. So within 100 meters, some simple FPV equipment is maybe already getting to the range, to the limit of its range. Maybe you can get 500 meters, but everything beyond that, I would consider long range. I don't have much experience with long range FPV flying myself, but I've watched a couple of people doing it. One of the videos that got me into FPV were the Team Black Sheep videos where they fly with wings over the mountain ranges. And I'm also big into antennas. So I've built a lot of antennas to, back in the days where there was no FPV yet, to transmit messages of some sort across the world. So I think FPV, long range flying, is a very interesting pastime in terms of building and exploring, but I didn't make much own experience with that. So that's why I'm handing it over to Travis, who is currently building his first long range quad. Travis, tell us a little bit, what do you need on a long range quad as opposed to a normal short range quad?
Well, so all the basics are pretty much the same, but the specific gear that you're going to use to accomplish each task is totally different. So, you know, if you're used to micros and mini quads and you get into long range, chances are, and it's not necessary that you do so, but chances are you're going to end up looking for different motors because you're trying to maximize efficiency. You might be looking into bigger propeller sizes and therefore a bigger frame. Again, larger propeller sizes make it easier to get those efficiency gains. You're going to be looking into a different radio system. You need that longer range reach of 900 megahertz or something, you know, close to that in frequency transmission, as opposed to the 2.4 gigahertz that we're usually flying on. Your video gear, you may be considering a different frequency range for your video gear as well, dropping from 5.8 down to 2.4 or 1.3, in which case the antennas that Dr. B mentioned, the antennas start to get bigger. But we're not really building these things to crash. We're building them to traverse longer distances. So some of the compromises that wouldn't be like a larger, more fragile antenna that wouldn't necessarily work great on your Bash or mini quad are going to be perfect for long range flying. So it's just this really interesting sort of deviation to go down. And I don't know if I'm going to try to set any distance records with the craft that I'm building, but I'm certainly interested in playing with an entirely round of new gear and seeing how that compares and seeing what that experience is like. So, but it's something all of those original videos, the TBS videos from years ago, God almighty, they grabbed all our attention and we just went, you know, our eyes just popped out of our head. These guys were pioneering, you know, this whole new adventure where, I mean, they were just really in, you know, leaving that little space that we're used to flying in and heading out on a mission. Boy.
Yeah, these videos were epic. I remember one of them that got him in trouble because I think he was flying in the middle of the city or something. Yeah, cool. Thanks a lot, Travis. That bangs right onto 4 minute mark. So let's move on. I pointed in the wrong direction. That's so confusing because it's mirrored what I have on the screen here. So let's move into flight simulators. 4 minutes starting right now. I have a little story to start off with. The sorry for getting the name wrong, but the latest national Australian FPV racing competition that finished just yesterday was won by a guy who just appeared on the scene recently. I didn't know his name, and I know pretty much all people who have some skills in FPV racing in Australia. So he popped up on the scene and he smashed it. He was flying faster than anyone else, more consistent than anyone else, and he scored #1. He didn't have much practice on an actual quad, but he spent a lot of time practicing on simulators. I don't have much experience with simulators. For me, it's kind of two different things. I can't fly really well on a simulator, even though I consider myself a sort of average pilot on the sticks with a real quad. So, Travis, I think you have more experience with flight simulators. Handing the mic to you.
Yeah, not so much direct experience, but I'm surrounded by people that are constantly talking about these competitions that they're in Rotor Rush and Velocidrone, and it's really amazing the day and time that we're in now, because internet speeds are up and computers are fast enough where guys are getting together and competing online, and there's that same kind of spirit of competition and camaraderie that exists at a local racing club. So it's this entire virtual environment that's really mimicking real life now. And I know that simulators are a big part of what's behind DRL and pilots getting into that and taking their competition to the next level and getting involved in that organization. And it's just really amazing to see guys get together and be able to compete and post up those times and really get involved in cross boundaries. You've got guys on opposite sides of the world that are chasing each other's best time. It's a really fun environment to see. See for people. Monty, what's your experience been with simulators? You've probably flown a few more of them than I have.
Yeah, I definitely have spent my time on Rotor Rush. As much time as I spend, it's still not enough to catch some of those hot dogs that really put in the time and effort. But it's just like anything else with our hobby. You have to put in the time and effort to be good at it. And some of these guys train on the sims every day for hours. And some of the racing's amazing. But just as you mentioned, meeting people from all over, I get to talk to Jesse P. I get to talk to all these different people who I wouldn't have the opportunity to meet face to face. But when we get in on a race and we're sharing video over Discord, it's pretty awesome.
That's good. Good point. If you want to meet Jesse Perkins, if you want to race him, get onto the Tiny Whoop Rotor Rush. I see lots of posts of them going on there at night and racing, which is usually not a very convenient time for me. And as I said, I kind of suck at flying simulators. I don't know. For me, it's kind of the feedback the feedback is missing, and yeah, I don't enjoy it too much. But I'm thinking to get back into this since I finally have a radio, the Jumper T8SG, which apparently makes it a lot easier to connect it to a computer. Haven't got much time yet to set it up. So much to simulators. Let's see if I highlight this here. Does it highlight this on the... Yeah, that works. Cool. So next topic we're going to talk about is video recording and video editing. One of my favorite topics, and I could talk for hours about this. Let's cut it short, 4 minutes. Let's start with video recording. There's 2 ways you can record video, or maybe 3 ways when you're flying FPV. #1 is you can record it on board. You stick a GoPro or some other high quality camera, but something that is maybe a little robust and you don't want to lose, and you can't afford to lose. Stick that on the quad, press the record button, fly around, and then download the video. Way #2 to get some video of you flying FPV is to record the downstream. So connect a video recorder to your FPV receiver and then record that. has its own challenges. We've been talking in one of the last episodes about that, and we will continue talking about the challenges of recording downstream video. And then number three, what most people oversee when they're trying to make an FPV video is to provide some external view. Just take a camera and point it at yourself, record some audio from while you're flying, what you're doing, what you're talking, how you're looking while you fly, and it makes the whole thing more interesting. Moving to video editing, there's many motivations why you might want to edit videos and publish them. For me, it's mainly to communicate, to show what I have achieved or maybe what I haven't achieved and what I want to know, make a video about it and then share it with the community to get some feedback on that. If you want to start with video editing, let's give you a couple of tips where you can start your research and start mucking around with this. I started on a Mac with the software iMovie. I think it's free or $15 or something. So if you have a Mac, start with that. And if you're on Windows, I don't know, because I left the Billy world a while ago. Then Travis, you have a suggestion what to do, what software to run for free or a little money, I believe, on Windows. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I wanted to try out the whole video editing thing, color corrections and putting clips together, motion tracking, and some of the more advanced features without spending any money on video editing, because I knew I wasn't really going to get into it, super intense. And I fly mostly micro, so I didn't have any footage that was really worthy of it. But I wanted to see what it was like. And I found a program called DaVinci Resolve. And it's really a really similar format to, I guess, some of the Adobe products. Premiere, I guess, is one of the paid softwares. And it's a really similar format to that. So if you're looking for an opportunity to try some color correction, some more advanced video editing without committing to buying software, I would definitely recommend checking that out. It's a pretty powerful system, and there's a version of it that's absolutely free. So,
yeah.
Monty, what are you using for video editing?
I tried Adobe Premiere. A little on the pricey side though, and there's a steep learning curve. That's one area that I wish I focused on more, trying out different products. And I definitely don't pump out enough videos, but I love flying.
Awesome, that's good. Leaves us 20 seconds to spare. A couple of quotes from the chat. People are talking about, it's Kansas in the Wizard of Oz, so not Australia. Sorry for that, Frank. But a couple other questions here. How far does a tiny whoop go? If you have good antennas and a good vantage point to see with the antennas where it's flying, then the main limitation is actually the flight time. So if you have only 2 or 3 minutes of flight time, that means you go 1 minute in the one direction and then you have to come back. So yeah, not very far, realistically, maybe 500 meters max. So let's move on. Next topic, social media and tech support. This hobby has created a lot of communities, a lot of spaces online where people collaborate. And Travis is running basically one of the places that I have whipped up in, I don't know, it was 2 or 3 years ago. I still consider this one of my best ideas in creating online places to meet. Travis, tell us a little bit about what you're doing online and where you meet people and where you help them and where they help each other, etc.
Well, I would say my biggest home base is Benedict's, micromotor warehouse community, the micromotor community, and I found this place when I was starting out in the micro end of our hobby, and I was greeted and welcomed by a bunch of extremely helpful people that have continued to stand by my side even till today and participate in my projects as I participate in theirs. And social media in general is, I think it's the biggest hobby within the hobby that we have today. We arguably all spend more time on the internet, engaging in others' projects and helping people through their challenges, and seeking help with our own challenges than we spend assembling things or flying or pursuing any of the other sub-hobbies. And we're really fortunate today to have this kind of environment. The hobby community itself is so encouraging and so supportive of each other. It's just an amazing community to be part of. And the micromotor warehouse community is just a pillar of an example of this, where people have gathered from around the world and we're all selflessly helping each other succeed and celebrating each other's victories. And we've created relationships that span political borders and physical borders and oceans. It's just amazing, what a reach that this community has, and the kinds of friendships that you can make. So I would encourage people, absolutely find your social media outlets where people are welcoming you and helping each other and participate in those places. That is extremely rewarding.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Travis. Michael, you want to add anything to that? What's your experience in the online worlds? How did you get to this hobby, and what places do you like to hang out?
I would say anybody considering FPV or any hobby like this, the online social medias are essential. This is how I met the majority of the people. I started with Facebook groups. I moved into Discord. Discord's amazing, for something that's free that we can use and we can converse and talk and engineer and design. I think it's something that's just unbelievable. But the relationships you build online is exciting. But then when you have the opportunity to go meet people for events or just fun flies, it really makes things so much better. But I don't know how I could have made it in this hobby without social media. There's no book. There's no one place to go do this, and you get there. You read, you watch YouTube, you go ask questions to people, and if you don't have that, it's really hard to succeed in this hobby.
Yes, that's right. Helping each other out is the key to accelerate learning. And once you have learned that, then it's kind of natural to come back and give back. So thanks, Michael, for that. Let's move on to the next topic. I'm getting confused here with all my tabs. The next topic is the different classes of the different size classes of quads or aircrafts in general, micro, mini, or larger. So a lot of us find themselves specializing or spending most of their time on a certain size, because the size of the craft determines the size of the space you can fly in, or other way around. The size of the space dictates the size of the quad. There's not much point in flying a micro quad on a large open field, and there's also not much point in flying a 250 racer within my office. So passing it on, the mic to Travis. What do you think, Travis? How would you categorize the different sizes you can get yourself into?
So I think the hobby within the hobby for different size classes really comes down to the tweaker or the tuner. There are guys out there that really enjoy changing settings and pushing something to the absolute limits of its performance. Myself in earlier years, and a lot of other people in this hobby, maybe we might have been other hobbies that we had, maybe performance cars or hot rodding things. We're looking for, you end up sort of focusing in on a certain size class and looking for all the different tweaks and performance gains and everything you can do to push that size class to its absolute limit. And I think that's where the hobby of different size classes comes into play, because there's different techniques and there's an entirely new wealth of knowledge. The basic principles are the same between a micro and a mini quad, but the types of parts that you're going to use and what you've been exposed to in one group is not going to help you in the other size class. The tuning techniques that you learned in one size class are not going to be the same for a different size class. So there's really this interesting hobby of mastering each size class or finding your size class that fits your flying space and really mastering that and learning and pushing that class of craft to its absolute limit of performance. And for some of us, changing a bunch of settings and exploring different performance upgrades and parts and looking for that edge is this deviation and rabbit hole that we go down and never come back from. And it can be a lot of fun, to get out there and to start with, maybe a micro that's shaking around in the wind and bumping around, and you start dropping weight and you figure out how to pid tune micros. And by the end, the thing is just ripping fast and stable in all kinds of outside conditions. The same thing with each size class. It's really enjoyable. I mean, for me, it's been really enjoyable to sort of figure out how to master each different category of flying thing that we have available to us now.
Awesome, thank you. Michael, you have 30 seconds to plug your favorite size of quads.
Sure. So just to tell people, they may not want to look at the flying space so much as cost. A lot of guys, have limited budgets. Tiny whoops are a great way to get into the hobby, have performance, and still be able to enjoy flying with everybody. I know I bounce around between mini quads and tiny whoops, but both are equally fun in their own way. And the tuning that Travis talks about just makes the hobby so much better.
Awesome, thank you. Right on the buzzer, we move on to what's the next topic? We move on to building and collecting. So open this and then move to this one here. So yeah, I'm big on building and collecting. A quad a day keeps the doctor away. And I think I've been building at least a quad a day since I came up with the idea of building quads, which was around 5 years ago. So I have them coming out everywhere here. And the trouble of micro quads or specific micro quads in this place is usually finding them amongst all the others. So yeah, just building one after the other, and of course you can't fly them all, but having them to your disposal, learning about each individual one, and progressing within your builds from one to the next. Yeah, that in itself can be a big hobby. But I'm by far not the most extreme person in that realm. Travis, tell us a little bit about your collection.
Well, I thought I got into the hobby for, the obvious reasons, in RC, driving land vehicles and flying planes and FPV and drones. And what I realized, over the years is I'm not so much of a pilot as I am a collector. I fly, close to every day. My past, maybe not so much, but all my life, I think at one point I had over 30 or 40 airplanes in this garage when I was into airplanes. At this point now, I have probably about 25 different quads of varying sizes. And if you are finding yourself in a position like me where you couldn't charge all your batteries in one day and you couldn't fly all the things that you own in one day, you qualify as a collector. And some of us have been collectors all of our lives, from Matchbox cars on all the way up to our grown-up toys. And it's fun to be a collector, and it's fun to have these things. And I think it really juxtaposes the people in the hobby that find their sub-hobby of flying. Some people that focus on flying, some of the best pilots out there, they only have one type of craft, and they might have 3 or 4 of them, but they want to fly the same thing over and over again and get better at flying. And I found that wasn't me. I'm a collector, and every one I have is different. I don't have 2 of the same thing. So, Monty?
I'm a collector, but I collect parts, because when I crash, it breaks into a million parts, and I have a collection over here, and I have a collection over there. I have built quads, but I probably have more collections of parts than I have built quads. How's that?
Yeah, that's good. I like that. I got that too. Yes, but I have lots of the same quads. I kind of enjoy building the same build over and over again and making a just a little bit better over time. And yeah, I also found ways to sell some of these hand-built ones, which kind of help the process of rebuilding it again and again, and sort of finding a way to recoup the costs of that because yeah, it can get fairly expensive. You know, it recently the price dropped a lot, but not long ago, and even the micro quad build was worth at least $100 or so. So that leaves us with 30 seconds to the flagfall. Quoting a bit of stuff here from the chat. What do we see? Silverware NFE has completely spoiled me, says the Alaska Drone Racing League. That's awesome, my friend. If you haven't tested this yet, try Silverware to fly whoop. I'm not going to say more right now because that's a huge topic in itself, which we could fill several hours with, especially when we have Travis in the chat. I really should put a different notification tone on here. That means the next topic is on, which is, where did I put it? Here. So 3D printing and 3D design. Damn, wrong button again. So in this order brings up my lovely visitors here on top of my topic list. So the next topic is 3D printing. Unfortunately, it's kind of behind the camera. I do have a 3D printer standing right next to the camera. I've bought this printer shortly after I got into the flying hobby because I wanted to create my own frames, and I did so relatively successfully. But I can also tell you that printing in itself is a huge hobby, and for some of us in the FPV hobby, FPV is a sub-hobby to 3D printing. I still remember when I had the printer for the first year, it was constantly printing. I was creating stuff, downloading stuff from Thingiverse, and this printer was cranking on and on and on. These days, my use of a 3D printer is very limited to mainly two categories of stuff that I print. One is kind of ornamental. So, for example, this thing here on top of my desk, I have printed, or other nice stuff that I like to look at. And category number two is adapters. Make this thing fit that thing. That is what I use 3D printing the most for. Guys, who of you wants to add something to that? Who of you has more experience in 3D printing? Put your hand up.
Well, we've both been 3D printing, and we've kind of been comparing notes on our printers and settings and printing some of the same stuff. So, Monty, what would you have to say about 3D printing?
This was unexpected for me when I started FPV. I started building mini quads, and I saw these little TPU adapters and things on there, and I started asking, and before I knew it, I owned a printer, and I'm spending more time on printing than flying. And I find myself swinging back and forth. Sometimes I'll just go into printing mode for a while. Other times I'll be flying. I love 3D printing. I think it's exciting learning how to create and print. I think it's great.
I think the biggest thing to point out about 3D printing is, these days printers have gotten really affordable. I mean, there's nice gear out there for a couple $100. So if you think that 3D printing is a hobby within the hobby that's going to catch your attention, or you want to try it, it's not a huge commitment. You don't have to be an expert of 3D design. There's Thingiverse and a lot of other places out there where there are files that are designed by other people that could keep your printer running nonstop. And you'd never have to get into designing things yourself. If you want to get into designing things yourself, and the printer is just a tool to make those parts come into reality, then there's amazing software that's out there for your PC, like Fusion 360 or Autodesk Inventor. These are amazing design programs that are professional grade, and you can get into a hobby license, at no charge, and it's limitless what you can do, with these design programs if that's what you're into, and you can, gosh, you could take up all your time and have no time left to fly very easily and very quickly. So explore some of those options if you think they are interesting. It's worth looking into.
That's right. Just designing is a complete hobby in itself. I tried a variety of different softwares, and I didn't want to spend any money on it. What I'm using, and that's only very simplistic, really allows you only to do simple shapes, cut out things and size them, etc., is FreeCAD. As it says, it's free, and if you keep the files small and have a direct approach of designing it, then it works okay. But yeah, I've decided that I don't want to spend a huge amount of time on designing them. I download a lot of stuff from Thingiverse. There's a lot of awesome design and also customizable designs where you can change the size and some parameters and stuff like that. Or I want to do very simple adapter-like designs, as I said before, fit this to that. So I messed up the stopwatch this time, but I think the 4 minutes are done. Next topic, and I know, Travis, that's one of your favorite ones, is electronic design and assembly of flight controllers. I have seen a lot of people doing it, designing flight controllers and hand soldering them or baking them in toaster ovens, or sometimes, if you can afford it, even a dedicated SMD oven. And I'm sure there will be lots of posts down there in the chat room about this, because I know a lot of you guys from the Alienwhoop community and from the old school FC Hacker Club are in the chat room right now. So be ready for all the links that you need. We're only going to have a couple minutes on this topic. Travis, go for it.
Well, I guess in a couple minutes, what I'd like to do is just get the information out there that's useful. One of the most popular design programs that you can get into at no charge is the Eagle CAD software, and that's what a lot of these guys that are getting into FC design and ESC design and different hardware designs are using to create some of their circuits. And then most commonly, when you want to prototype something after you've designed it, OshPark is what we're using in the States here. There's tons of other options, of course, for both software and for getting your boards prototyped. And then you get into some basic soldering equipment, when you actually want to start to try assembling these things. For years, I was into sorting out the circuits and learning the different circuits that put a flight controller together, and I hadn't invested in the actual equipment to start doing the hand assembly myself. And I've just recently got into the hand assembly side with the help of the Alienwhoop team and their encouragement. So it's been really cool to kind of bridge the gap between the circuits behind the hardware and the actual physical components, and putting tiny things on boards with tweezers and looking through microscopes and magnifying glasses. And I really enjoyed that. But there's there's all these open source projects that already exist, and there's so many people just like our team that are sharing their work with the community. So if you want to try the design part, you can get into some of the free software. If you want to try the assembly part, there's free designs that are out there, and it's all available for you to explore and try out.
Awesome, thank you. Michael, do you have to add anything to this? Did you delve into designing and building flight controllers?
Yeah, I dabble a little bit with Trav and Charlie. Just as Travis said, though, there's a lot of open source designs already out there. You can look at them, start trying to dissect it, and there's a lot of open communities that can help you learn. We love seeing the community grow and having people's input in designs that you just never would have thought of.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks a lot. Let's move on to the next topic. Trevor's already highlighting it here, which we might want to spend a couple more minutes on, because that is software design. Am I really bad at multitasking? Even if it's just talking and pressing two buttons. So software design, which in this case means creating, and also, well, it doesn't really say it in the title, but also programming the software that we run on flight controllers. So I have learned programming back in school, but I've never really practiced this professionally. But I know sort of how a program works. I've been managing programmers for a while. Or let's say software developers. I'm always, getting confused when I say programmers. What do you mean? The little thing that you plug in? No, I mean software developers. So I know a lot about how to write software on a high level, but my abilities in actual coding are quite limited. However, I have enjoyed in the very beginning of my FPV flying career a lot of hacking MultiWii, which is an Arduino-based project that runs on a couple of 8-bit old-school flight controllers. And the advantage is that it's very easy to get from the source code to a compiled project. You just download and open the Arduino IDE, integrated development environment, change a couple lines of code, and then you can do some stuff that is not available in any public piece of software. However, luckily we have a couple of people in here in the stream who know a lot more about software design than I do. Trevor's hit us with some information.
So this is one of those rabbit holes that I found myself just absolutely fascinated by. Aside from a few Arduino projects in my history, I hadn't really tried to code anything before I got into multi-rotors. And I'm still learning. I'm learning within our FPV environment, and I'm being encouraged and helped by people in our community. And it's a lot of fun if it's something that inspires you to get in there and start to take control over how things behave. And I think it's worth pointing out too that it's not so much about learning a coding language as really exploring some of the firmwares that are out there. I mean, all these firmwares most of the firmwares that we're flying are open sourced. There's open sourced flight controller firmware. There's open sourced electronic speed control firmware. There's open source OSD firmwares. There's so many different open source firmware. There's open source transmitter firmwares. And if you're really curious about how these things work, the way that they work, the answers are in that code. And they're well-documented projects, and they're so well-documented, in fact, that you can probably start to learn how to code from within those projects. So it's really neat. And then, beyond the actual sort of programming language stuff, there are many of us that just become experts of the finished product, of exploring the different settings and learning all the ins and outs of the options that are available. There are many of us that become experts in the firmwares. And those are really useful people in our community because they help a lot of people out. They answer a lot of questions. So there's just an entire hobby that's waiting, an entire sub-hobby that's waiting right there in the code and in the control systems for the things that we're flying.
Yeah, awesome. Michael, you want to add anything to software design? I don't know, but if you're into coding, but I know that you're into IT, so you probably know a lot about software design as well, right?
I know a good deal about software design. I spent a good deal of time with Travis. Travis opened my eyes up to tuning. Before I used to just throw on, beta flight or something onto a flight control and just go fly. And I wondered why I didn't fly so well. And then I got into the tuning with Travis and some other guys, and I was amazed at just tweaking, like Travis said, the finished product, what a difference it can make.
Yeah, cool. So let's move on to the last topic on the list. This is certainly not the last topic that we could talk about, but at some stage the list gotta end. It's a continuous list though, so we will add stuff to this later on. The last topic on the list for today is shopping/trading. So Not sure if you can really call it a hobby, but it's certainly fun. It's certainly expensive, and it consumes a lot of time. So maybe that's a hobby in itself. So I know that myself. I spend a lot of time on the internet and scrolling through new stuff, just sorting Banggood.com by newest and look what's up there, or scrolling through the various forums and following the links what you could buy, and then sometimes justifying buying stuff not only because I need it for myself, but because I want to know how it works and because I want to bring the information out of there, and maybe I want to be the first to experience some new technology. Maybe it solves all the problems that I always had. Stuff is getting more affordable, smaller, comes in more variety, performs better. So there's always a reason to buy a new thing, or ideally buy three of them, because one of them might break while I'm putting it together. The next one breaks shortly after I take off. And maybe the third then finally gets me there to give me a good judgment if I need to buy two or three more, so I have some spares on hand. And yeah, for me, this kind of escalated. I used to source electronics professionally in my previous career. So once I got into this hobby, yeah, I couldn't just leave it, but I went onto the Alibabas and the AliExpress and all the Chinese chats and started buying and buying stuff. And in order to justify all this in front of the domestic government, I had to find ways to offload some of these things and started to do bulk buys and started to pass on parts to my friends, which eventually led to the creation of Micromotor Warehouse. So yeah, you can certainly just make it a whole hobby of buying, researching, maybe even reviewing, and then sharing, passing on, selling parts. Travis, what do you have to say about this?
This is the most dangerous hobby within the hobby that exists. Well, I mean, I guess it all depends on how many times you add to cart. If you can avoid the add to cart button, then it's a relatively innocuous way to spend your time. But it's worth. It's something that we kind of all have to participate in it. We have to scan someplace. We have to have our news from someplace from these vendors on what the new parts are, what's being released, and so it is an interesting pastime to get out there and just sort of browse for what the latest and greatest products are, and kind of get a feel for where things are going, where manufacturers are pushing things, what new toys we're going to have to play with. Be careful.
Be very careful.
Yeah, so Monty, how's your hobby budget looking at the moment?
My credit card was smoking last year. This year I had to show some exercise and some restraint. I had to change up my mornings. I don't look at FPV emails drinking my coffee in the morning because that's when it was the worst for me. But you do get into that habit of what you say. You go and buy one, but then I should probably buy another one just to have a spare. Well, look, they have 3 on sale. And then before you know it, your cart's full and you push the button and then you're feeling bad afterwards, but you can't wait till it comes in.
Yep, that's it. So shoot, I forgot to press the button again. So I don't know at what time we're at. It's 5 minutes left to the hour. That's what I can see on my screen here. So yeah, thanks guys for blasting through with me through those 12 topics. We gotta expand on those in the future, depending on what you guys who are watching and listening want to see. So if you want us to expand on one or some of these topics, put it in one of those chats. There's too much going on in the two chats for me to quote everyone and greet everyone in here. But yeah, thanks guys for keeping it so busy. And yeah, if you have questions, chuck them in the Discord chat room, and there will be other people picking up on it. And if you're watching the YouTube video, I believe the chat is also available for those people watching it afterwards. So if you're watching it live, want to add something, some of your own experiences into the chat, then people who are watching the video afterwards can see it as well. So we got 4 minutes left. So guys, Travis and Michael, if you have anything you want to answer from the chat, if you want to give a shout out to anyone you've seen in there, or if you just want to quote a funny line, there's a couple of minutes left. Go for it.
Well, I'd just like to, kind of put in some closing words here about encouraging people to find your hobbies within the hobby. There's no obligation to participate. I watched a lot of guys in the comment, we got into 3D printing, and there was a lot of guys that popped in and said, I'd rather just pay somebody else for the printer to make parts for me. And, that's exactly what this is all about. Find the things that inspire you and find the things that you enjoy, and go explore those things and have fun. There's no rules that we are operating by. There's no guidelines and restrictions. It's all about finding what's fun for you. I've explored a little bit of all of these categories and more, and I never really pursued. I guess maybe if I'd focused on one of them, I could have gotten really good at it. But my goal was not to get really good at anything. It was just to have some fun and look around and find the different things I enjoy. And I encourage you to do the same and make the best of it.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for the rap, Travis. Michael, do you have to add anything? Did you find anything standing out in the chat that you want to quote?
Kind of observations like Travis. A lot of people saying, I like this, I like that, or I didn't do this. Just as Travis said, find what's good for you, find what you have. This is all about having fun. This isn't our job. This isn't what you do for work. Just enjoy it. It's a great way to blow off steam and meet people and just find the things that you enjoy and find the people that enjoy it too and hang with them.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, guys, for hanging out here with me, Travis and Michael in the video chat, and all you guys who've joined us in the chat room. Appreciate that. It's been a great journey so far, and we see you on the next one.
Right.